Hello, I am CammyG, and welcome back to our Fortnite Save the World tutorial videos, where today we're going to be talking about the elements, the elemental husks. The different elements in the game, what they mean, what their weaknesses are, how to fight them, what to use on your weapons, what builds to use against them, all the information, literally any information you could need about elemental husks in this game, you will find in this video. So make sure to stay to the end, obviously, to get all of the information you could possibly need. Now, if you know everything about elemental husks, obviously you're probably going to leave at this point. So won't blame you, but I'm gonna give you literally all the information you could possibly need on the elemental husks. So there are 3 elements in the game: fire, water, and nature. Now, enemies can be these elements, and your weapons can be these elements. So the husks, when they are fire, will look like they are on fire. Pretty simple. The water husks will look blue, basically. They'll look icy. So, it says water, but generally it's more of an ice effect. And then nature is your sort of electric. They will look yellow with sparks coming out, little bolts of lightning, that type of thing. Same with your weapon. Obviously, you can use weapon skins in Save the World now, but the end of your weapon will actually have the effect if you look closely enough. So when you've got fire, you will see fire on the end of your gun. Same with water and nature. You'll see, icy effect with little sort of snowflakes, and then zaps of electricity if you're using nature. Now, another element that does exist is energy and physical. So the enemies can technically be physical, which is basically just husks without an element. Not sure if the game technically calls them physical or not, but basically enemies without an element are considered sort of physical, and your weapons can be physical too, and they can be energy. So I'll cover those in general throughout this video, but I'm going to mainly focus on the 3 because that's sort of the most important thing. So what's weak to what, and what is strong to what? So it's sort of a triangle, sort of a rock, paper, scissors type deal here. So water is strong against fire. So if you see a fire husk, you want to use a water weapon. Why? Because water puts out fires. When a fireman goes to a fire, what does he use? He uses water to put it out. So that, it's pretty sensible logic for that. The next 2 aren't as logical when you think about the real world, but fire is strong against nature. Now, why is that? I guess technically because sort of fire would burn down trees if we're considering nature as actual nature. But in the game, it's more electric. But yeah, fire is strong against nature. And then if we come back to the top of the triangle, the end of the circle, the end of the loop, whatever you want to call it, nature is strong against water. So again, not really sure the logic on that one. The easiest one to remember is that water is strong against fire, and then from there you can keep the triangle going if you forget what is strong against what. Now in the game, it will actually give you a pop-up saying what element to use against it. It'll say like, this storm contains nature enemies, water is recommended. Not sure what that voice is, by the way, but yeah, the game will help you out. But yeah, if you see those elements, that's what gun you want to use. Now I'll put like an overlay of the video here so you can sort of visualize it a bit better, as well as some gameplay. But there's more than just weapons and those 3 elements. So obviously we have the structures that we use to build our defenses. So we have the wood, brick, and metal, and these play into the 3 elements. So without any consideration of elements, metal is the strongest resistance. So if you are up against non-elemental husks, just plain ones without any element on, you want to use metal to have the strongest defense. So when we build like endurance builds, for example, we use metal and we tier it up to, level 3. So that's the strongest, and then brick's the next strongest, and then wood is the weakest because it's just flimsy wood, isn't it? Now, for the elements, it makes more sense to think of one and then move on to the rest. So the first one we'll focus on is fire again. So fire is strong against wood, which makes sense because fire would burn down wood. So if you make a base out of wood and there's fire husks, they're going to do double damage to the wood. That's how this works. If they are strong against the material, they're going to do double damage. So if you have fire husks, you want to continue using metal for your build, which you were going to anyway, so that's fine. Now for water husks, they are strong against brick by doing double damage to the brick. So in this case, once again, you're going to want to keep your build as metal. Now, when it comes to nature husks, this is where you'd actually want to switch things up, because nature is strong against metal, doing double damage to metal. So in this case, the strength metal has over brick isn't strong enough to outpace their double damage to the metal. So you'd want to build out of brick. Now, where the interesting thing comes is you can have a mission alteration, corrosive metal, where the husks do more damage to metal and it sort of corrodes over time after they hit it. Now, if the husks are water, so they're strong against brick, but there's also metal corrosion, you'd probably still want to stick to metal. So basically, when you're building defenses, always build out of metal unless you're against nature enemies, in which case you'd want to use brick. Pretty much the rule for that. Obviously, I can show you a display, but obviously that is the general takeaway for the way you're going to build things, is just build out of metal unless you're against nature, in which case build out of brick. Perfect. Right. So now that we have that, I can go into a bit more detail about the elements and how they interact with guns. So we can start with the regular husks because it's the easiest to deal with. So when you have a perk on your gun for, physical, energy, fire, water, or nature, you will see there is a plus sign. So if I go to a schematic here, go to here, you'll see element, energy, and plus 20 damage. Now, if I found one that's physical, here you will see element, physical, and 44% damage. So the physical actually does more damage to non-elemental husks because it has that extra 24% above the other ones. Now, generally, you're not going to see non-elemental husks that often once you get out of, stonewood plankton. So generally, I don't really recommend making weapons physical. With traps, you kind of have to with the gas trap and stuff like that. But obviously, the rest of the weapons have plus 20% damage. So against basic enemies, physical is best. But outside of that, you could use any of them really, and it doesn't really matter. Now, I've already gone over, which element is better against which husk elemental, but there's more information to be given. So the way it works is, as I said before, say you have a fire husk, water is powerful against that. That means your weapon's going to do its normal damage, so 100% damage. Then the other elements are affected differently. So against all elemental enemies, energy does 75% damage. So if you have an energy gun, no matter what element the enemy is, it's going to do 75% damage, which isn't bad really. Considering, all things considered. Now, physical does 50%. So if you want to use a physical weapon and use it against all the elements, it's going to drop off real fast as soon as you start damaging those elemental enemies. And that 24% bonus you get above all the other ones doesn't really last. As soon as you drop that in half, it's, it's a big difference. So that's why I say don't really use physical. Now, if you use the same element against an elemental husk, so if you use fire against a fire husk, if you use water against a water husk, or if you use nature against a nature husk, you're going to do 2/3 damage, which is only just slightly worse than energy, but better than physical. And then if you use the thing it's strong to, so if you use nature against fire, which isn't really going to do anything, you'll do 25% damage, which is just absolutely terrible. So I guess the main takeaway is you never want to use nature against fire, you never want to use fire against water, and you never want to use water against nature. You're basically giving the husk the advantage that we are taking when we, use water against fire, for example. If a water husk comes against your fire weapon, it's really powerful to it, so you don't want to do that. Now, if you want to be the most optimal, you could have like 3 weapons, in your roster, and you could have one be water, one be nature, and one be fire, and then you can swap out as and when. What I personally like to do is just have generally energy weapons, because I use Cyclops most of the time anyway, so energy damage zaps between enemies. So me personally, I advocate for just using energy across the board. It's so much easier. You don't have to keep a bunch of different weapon schematics leveled up using all your legendary perk up, all that stuff. But obviously, if you want to be an absolute sweat and make sure you're using the correct thing each time, use, water against fire, nature against water, and fire against nature husks. Now, the interesting part comes when you deal with the chrome huskies, which I've made a video about. So they can be, I haven't seen them water, but they probably can be, like they must be. Yeah, they can be. I've seen them be water. So they can be any of the 3 elements, and the only way to kill them is to use fire damage or water damage. So if you come across a nature husky, that's fine. You can use fire. It does 100% damage. Obviously, in this case, energy damage will not kill them. It will just knock them to the knee. They'll take a moment's silence, and then they'll get back up. So don't use energy against chrome huskies. Please, God, don't use them. If a chrome husky is nature, then yeah, you can use fire. That's going to do 100% damage, and we're golden. If a chrome husky is fire, again, you can use water. That will kill it, and everything will be fine. The only problem comes when you have a water chrome husk, because it is weak to nature, but nature doesn't kill chrome huskies. So your only options are fire and water. Which one do you want to use? Well, you don't want to use fire because that's going to do 25% damage, which is terrible. What you want to do is just, play stalemate, use water on water. It's going to do 2/3 damage, which isn't great, but at least you're going to kill it for good. Now, I think that's everything there is to cover about elementals. Yeah, it's pretty much all there is to cover. The only other thing I could think of is the actual effect the elemental husks have on you as the player. So a fire husk will hit you, and then you will take affliction damage over time in the form of fire. So it'll just tick you, you'll take extra damage over time, which is really annoying if you're trying to interact with something, because it will cancel you searching, which is, God, that's really annoying. Water husks, as I said, it's more of an ice, so when they hit you, you will be slowed and snared, and you won't be able to move as fast, which gets you in a real predicament sometimes, so be careful of that. And then nature husks, if they melee you, you'll see electric zap through your body, and you will lose stamina, so you won't be able to use your abilities, you won't be able to, use your abilities. Yeah. So yeah, that's all there is to know. You've literally got all the information about elemental husks all here in this one video. So if you really enjoyed it, please show some appreciation, like the video, comment what your favourite part was, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you didn't like the video and you thought I missed something or I didn't explain something well, I'd love to know a description of that, and why you think that. I'd love to see that. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I really hope this helped, because I know a lot of people struggle with the elements. So I'd love to, just get this information out there. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers.